population has yet to receive a COVID-19 vaccination. The World Health Organization and the UN Children's Fund say the global focus on the pandemic has resulted in millions of children going without immunizations against other life-threatening diseases. As Lisa Schlein reports, they include measles and polio.
The UN reports the COVID-19 pandemic has set back progress in childhood vaccinations by a decade. WHO Immunization Chief Kate O'Brien says vaccines are the most powerful tools available to safeguard public health.
The world has rightly prioritized the emergency response to COVID-19. But if we fail to find a catch up those who have missed their vaccines, and restore and improve the essential immunization program, there is a serious risk of disease outbreaks that will continue to grow.
The report finds rising numbers of children miss their vital first vaccine doses in 2020 in all regions. The Southeast Asian and Eastern Mediterranean regions were most severely affected. For NPR News, I'm Lisa Schlein in Geneva.
I'm Dave Mattingly, NPR News in Washington.
And it's WNYC at 7:33. Good morning, I'm Michael Hill. 76 and sunny. Dangerous warnings for heat today and air pollution, so be careful out there. Delays on the Long Island Railroad, Port Jefferson branch this morning. The Democratic nominee or presumed nominee for New York City Mayor Eric Adams met with Governor Andrew Cuomo in Brooklyn to discuss gun violence prevention strategy with local leaders. Governor Cuomo says the state will fund an additional 4,000 summer jobs for youth.
And we have to get to the young people, target youth group 18 to 24.
I wish I had a better job to do than film.
No, don't do drugs, don't join a gang. There has to be an alternative.
The city is already funding 75,000 summer jobs for youth. A spokesperson for Mayor de Blasio says the additional slots are much welcome.
Okay, then we have the Iranian one who was spied on, who was basically having a contract on her head. And then we have the revolution, which is coming out with Haitian. The Haitian president was just killed. It's totally Ubu Trump. Ubu Trump, totally Ubu Trump, okay? It's Ubu Trump one more time. Trump Ubu Trump. And this is the thing by me. Actually, I'm an artist, in case you don't know yet. In case you randomly meet this video, I love to think
It's Morning
loud.
Edition on WNYC. I'm Michael Hill. During the pandemic, some New Yorkers experienced severe social isolation for the first time. But for many people living with severe mental health issues, that type of loneliness is all too familiar. One antidote is a clubhouse, a space where people can socialize, participate in activities, and get connected to services like healthcare and housing. Gothamist reporter Caroline Lewis takes us to the original clubhouse in Midtown Manhattan.
On a quiet tree-lined street a few blocks north of Times Square sits a stately brick building. An engraving above the big green doors reads Fountain House. Hello. Today I'm getting a tour from Elliot Madison, Fountain House's executive director.
Fountain House, interesting.
Hey, friends. So they're responsible for the switchboard, they're responsible for newspaper.
There are currently 16 clubhouses scattered throughout the 5 boroughs that mimic the model Fountain House pioneered in the 1940s. Fountain House is free to join as long as you have a severe mental illness. Members and staff screen new applicants. In fact, members run Fountain House alongside staff, and usually they're the ones giving the tours. But when I visit in late June, people have just started coming back. As we walk through the space, members are watering plants in the garden, preparing lunch in the kitchen, and working in a new unit called Media and Tech. It launched during COVID to give people digital tools and training.
And then you're gonna do a confirm idea right here again.
Nelson Ramirez, who's 57, is getting a lesson on how to use an iPad from a younger member. During the pandemic, Fountain House distributed hundreds of tablets for free. They launched a virtual clubhouse where members could pass the time together. Shortly after logging on, Ramirez joins the poetry meeting with members who are still remote.
You will always be in my heart. My friends, I will.
It's kind of where people put me, against my
The Fountain
will.
House model focuses on building
Not
social connections and
nice.
employment opportunities, but it also makes it easier to ensure that people stay connected to routine psychiatric and medical care and out of the emergency room.
That's why they want to put me.
Elsewhere, people are catching up in person.
Did Saturday go okay?
Yeah, I had about 7 people at the most, and it was really just like talking a lot about different things that impact queer people and queer members.
Madeline Joseph chats with another member who works with her in the Welcome Center. It provides orientation to those who are new to Fountain House. Joseph tells her about a recent gathering of Queer Council, a group she launched online during the pandemic.
I basically established a council of staff and members who want to help better Fountain House for queer members.
When Joseph joined Fountain House 5 years ago, she was just looking for a way to fill her days. She had dropped out of college and wasn't working.
I have bipolar disorder, ADHD, anxiety, PTSD, and...
I love what he
Since
has.
joining Fountain House,
I don't
she's
have
obtained
any
her
of that.
associate's degree. And she's gotten experience doing tech and admin work that she hopes will help her get a full-time job.
They saved my life. I'm a much better person after going through Fountain House as long as I've been here. I'm much more capable, I'm much more able-bodied, I'm more independent, and a lot of great things I've done at Fountain House really contributed to my overall outlook that's been shifted to a much more positive place.
The city's clubhouses receive about $10 million in public funding each year, with most coming from the state. This year, the city's investing another $4 million to boost clubhouse enrollment. Dr. Ashwin Vasan, president and CEO of Fountain House, says it's the first new funding in 20 years. He hopes it will help provide connection and care to more of the 280,000 New Yorkers with serious and persistent mental illness.
We see them really disconnected and marginalized and really bouncing around in this kind of revolving door between emergency rooms, shelters, incarceration, and the street.
A study
It
from
kind of
2017
happens to
found
me,
that
but
Fountain
not
House lowered
voluntarily.
Medicaid
It
costs for new
happens against my
participants,
will.
with the highest need members seeing their medical costs go down the most. Yet many people still have never heard of a mental health clubhouse. Vasan wants to raise their profile by building a national chain with shared branding and resources. For WNYC,
I think I
I'm
know
Caroline
this
Lewis.
model from NPR, and then how
Morning Edition from
abuses
NPR
happen.
News.
So
I'm Sasha
here
Pfeiffer.
it's
And I'm
presented
Stephen
as a
Steve.
good thing.
What did Haitians think
Exactly,
of their
Haitian
assassinated
painting
president?
Haitian now. That's
President
what we want
Jovenel
to go
Moïse was
for.
killed last week after a divisive
Because
tenure.
that's
On this
hilarious.
program in
It's
recent
Ubu
days, we heard a
Trump.
journalist who said the president was dismantling democracy. We've also heard the Haitian ambassador who defended the president's record. NPR's Jason Beaubien has been listening to the people Moïse governed. Jason, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Steve.
What are you hearing there in Port-au-Prince?
You know, it is
I
interesting.
read already
Moïse
in
was
New
an
York Times.
incredibly polarizing figure. Yesterday, supporters of Moïse set up a shrine to him outside the presidential palace, and this was one of the first memorials that's been erected since he was killed more than a week ago. And this was a crowd that said that Moïse had been a reformer, that he was trying to change Haiti for the better. One man I talked to, Emmanuel Prince, said Moïse was assassinated because he stood up to the corrupt Haitian elite. And Prince says Moïse was not killed by the Colombian mercenaries as police have claimed.
The Colombian was here, but that's a Haitian killed them. The system killed them. Because he working for the nation, for the poor people. That's what was happening.
You know, but there are other people who strongly disagree with that narrative about Moïse. They say that he was a dictator who was ruling by decree, that he was unlawfully clinging to power. You know, he did let Parliament fall apart. He hadn't held new elections. And the biggest complaint I was hearing is that he let criminal gangs just run rampant and take over entire neighborhoods, kill, kidnap, extort with impunity. Just up the street from this memorial this vigil to Moïse, a 40-year-old Civil Diosol says the dead president worked against the poor in Haiti and gave to the rich.
That's kind of a regular
He
thing.
says Haiti got far worse under
And then they
Moïse's
come
time in
here and
office.
live here on
And
that
his
money.
friends said he was actually happy to hear that Moïse had been assassinated. He said, if I could invent a hell for Jovenel, I would have done it. He said, I ask God to forgive me, but I take pleasure in the death of Jovenel Moïse.
Wow. Well, given those divided views, what do Haitians do now?
You know,
Well, they're
so
having
various groups are
groups,
trying to come together and figure out exactly the answer to that. One group is called the Commission for a Haitian Solution to the Crisis, and it's trying to take a very broad approach to reforming the country. It's using this moment to spur that reform. Monique Kleska is a former UN official. She's on the commission. I talked to her yesterday, and she said that this moment is incredibly important for Haiti.
We need something different. It's time to move Haiti into the 21st century.
So
Let's make out of this tragic, dramatic situation an opportunity.
She says that President Moise left
And
Haiti in
Ubu
shambles
was at the
with a government
beginning of
that's barely
the
functioning,
20th
not functioning at all in some parts of the country.
was a
And she says the only
century of
solution is for Haitians to come
crazy
together. And she
make
calls this
your
infighting
own
that's been happening
revolution.
within the political elite shameful.
And
But she
the
thinks that maybe
21st
this
century
brutal
has
killing
it
of
already
Moise
quite
inside his own home
a
is
lot
so
of
shocking that it may push Haitians together.
Not only inside his own home, but one of his own top security officials has now been arrested.
That's right. Dimitri Erard was arrested, taken into custody. Prosecutors are confirming that. He's not the only one who's been questioned about why it is that Moise could have been killed inside his own home and none of his bodyguards even injured.
NPR's Jason Beaubien is in Port-au-Prince. Jason, thanks.
You're welcome.
It's Morning Edition on WNYC. I'm Michael Hill. Families should start to see the new child tax credit payments in their bank accounts or mailboxes this week. Today on the Brian Lehrer Show, Washington Post personal finance columnist Michelle Singletary explains what parents need to know about their money and helps troubleshoot any of those issues. Plus, the Biden administration's plans to
That
reverse some
actually I'm a
child
vegetarian and
deportations.
just I had
That's this morning starting
diarrhea.
at 10 o'clock on the Brian Lehrer
So
Show.
basically I
Right now,
went
here's
like
John Schaefer with
how
today's
often I go to the toilet, something like 10 times. Not that you need to hear that, but this is like
It's
a
been almost a
function
year
of a
since
body.
the great English guitarist Julian Bream passed away. Today would have been his 88th
Oh no.
birthday, and the New York Guitar Festival is celebrating Bream's work by presenting a week-long online stream of some of the world's leading classical guitarists playing the music that Bream championed. The tribute actually began yesterday, and this performance by the Spanish guitarist Pablo Sainz Villegas was one of the first videos to be released.
I love music. Anyway, there's so much going on in a big city. It's unfortunate this house here is also a crazy house.
That's the Spanish dance number 5 by Enrique Granados, played by Pablo Sainz Villegas, as part of the New York Guitar Festival's week-long online tribute to the late Julian Bream. For a full schedule of these online performances, go to newsounds.org.
It's kind of easy said than done. Kick them out? No! You can't kick people out. They're taking me out.
Thursday, July 15th. A heat advisory starts at 11 o'clock this morning, and
You
so
see?
does an air quality or pollution alert for all
You
5
see,
boroughs
it's
and
gonna be
Westchester
very
and
hot.
Rockland counties.
I think
That
I
starts
might
at 11 o'clock as well.
take
It's going to be a hot,
definitely
humid day. 90
today
near, that's the high today, but
a
it's going to feel like
bath.
95.
I'll
High
be
heat,
in
high humidity.
the
Cooling centers are
pool.
open. Cooling centers are open, so be careful.
I'll go swim a little bit today. That's likelihood true. And away.
Support for NPR comes from member stations and from iDrive, providing cloud backup,
But I will
full
take
system
a bit
backup,
of
and
a
on-site
break to
iDrive
just
appliance
eat
to protect
all
PCs, Macs, and servers from data loss due to crashes and
fruits
ransomware at
and all these
iDrive.com/NPR. And focus
things,
features
like
with Roadrunner, a film
maybe
about
I
Anthony
did
Bourdain,
eat
the
too many
journey that
things,
changed him and the legacy he
or
left
maybe I
behind.
didn't watch
From
them
Morgan
enough.
Neville,
But
director of Won't You Be My Neighbor, in theaters tomorrow.
it's kind of
It's
theater.
Morning Edition on WNYC. I'm Michael Hill.
Then
In recent
COVID
years, New
goes
York
up.
State's governor and New York City's mayor haven't had a great relationship. But yesterday,
Then
Governor Andrew Cuomo held a
relationship
joint
of
event with
Cuomo
the
is
presumed winner of the Democratic primary for mayor. And the theme of the day was unity. Karen DeWitt reports.
Unity is
I am so
like
excited
a
about
key.
Eric Adams.
Cuomo, who has bitterly feuded with the present mayor and
He
former
has a
ally Bill de
problem,
Blasio, says
Cuomo.
things will be different if
Community
Adams, as
problem.
expected, wins the general election in November.
Courage and competence.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe Eric Adams has both those elements. And I pledge
but
today
then
to work in full partnership with him.
The governor, who's had an antagonistic relationship with the left of his party, says he and Adams come from the same political philosophy and hold similar views of what it means to be a progressive. The governor mocked left-leaning Democrats as wanting a utopia, and he said he and the Democratic nominee for mayor are more practical. Adams agrees, saying
you
he
see
and
how
Cuomo
left
see
New
eye to
York
eye
City
and
is now,
cannot let
or
the
the
term
free
progressive be
PK,
hijacked.
In the face of
all
the
this shit that
Democratic
costs so much
Party,
money.
those countless number of men and women, everyday workers, that
Ah,
they want
boys.
safe streets, they want their children educated, they want to stop hearing gunshots instead of alarm clocks.
The two announced that
Yeah,
4,000 summer
gunshot
jobs will
instead
be
of
made
alarm
available
clocks.
to
Pretty cool.
at-risk youth, as well as training for permanent employment. The program is part of a previously announced gun violence state of emergency by Cuomo, which comes as rates of shootings have risen in the state's major cities. Cuomo's plan does not include revisiting recently enacted changes to the state's criminal justice system, including ending most forms of cash bail and treating 16 and 17-year-old criminal defendants as juveniles in family court and not as adults facing confinement in state prison. Critics say that has led some teens to be less fearful of consequences if they are caught carrying or using a gun. Adams, a former police officer, says the measures might need to be tweaked.
Yes, we need to look at all of these new laws that are taking place and don't have unintended consequences based on how we enact them.
Adams says prosecutors could make better use of existing laws, like Kendra's law, which allows for court-ordered mental health treatment. And he blames the state's judges, who he says have thrown up their hands and are not imposing cash bail even when they're allowed to under the new laws. But Adams says more focus needs to be on prevention and providing services so that people don't resort to crime and violence. He says he does not want to return to the days of heavy-handed policing.
I see for every
The
day.
joint appearance comes as Cuomo faces numerous scandals, including multiple allegations of sexual harassment and, in one case, sexual assault. The state's Attorney General, Letitia James, is conducting an investigation. Adams is not among many prominent Democratic elected politicians who have called on Cuomo to resign, but he did say during the primary that when powerful men prey on women, swift action must be taken against them. Adams says he backs the AG's investigation and wants to hear its results.
Let the investigation go to its outcome. I mean, that's the system of justice that I protect